Right, we're going to start off with Adho Svanasana, but for today's class I'd like you to have some support underneath your head. So have a couple of foam pads. You might want to have a brick as well, or you may need to go a little bit higher. So we're going to be using the supports in this way so that we can understand the action on the dorsal spine. So coming up for Adho Svanasana. Now what I don't want you to do is to nose dive down. I want you to see that you go up really high on those toes, on those toe pads. Release the head and then push back. So you see that you get this pushing back and extending action. You want to see that although the head is supported, your arms are pulling back. Pressing down very, very strongly into the palms. If you can get the heels down, great, but don't worry if that's not yet. All right, so hopefully you found your support that's appropriate, and then we start the action. Now, if you're already in the action, see that you keep on going up. This takes tremendous control in taking the weight into the lower arm. So you want to see that that lower arm presses down very strongly. And then from there, you get that lift through the body. So soft inhalation and exhalation, press very firmly. And then see, can you take those thigh creases, the roots of the thighs back? Yes, a strong action holding your body up. Very strong action. Take a few more breaths in this pose. Okay, well done. And then release in. Good. All right, so I'm going to use some support for this seated action. So you may need to sit quite high on your support, or you may find that actually, I'm just going to grab this chair, you can sit to the floor. But either way, you want to be sure that your back has a really good symmetry. And what I mean by that is that when you come into this action, drawing the groins back really nicely and extending to the seat of the chair. You might want to put a blanket or cushion or something here to rest your head. You can see that I'm getting this action. But it may be that you can get this action here. So I know a lot of you will feel that or sense that the achievement is in how far you go down. It really isn't. It's about the symmetry and what you're doing and what you're opening on the way. So I'm going to turn this again and then come into the action. So you've got to see that you broaden in the back area. All right, so hopefully you've got your chair, something for your forehead, or a little bit lower in support. So you want to see that actually when you're coming forward in this way, you're opening all of these seat muscles, which really help you to lift your spine long term. It takes a little while to understand that. I know last week we were talking about how it was so important to lift the skull, to lift the base of the neck. It's really a strong action. And this, in a way, is working the other end of the spine, working the sacral area. So when you're in this position, you may feel all these different sensations in your lower back. If you do feel it's difficult to go forward and you're going forward this amount, then you need to launch yourself very high onto a bolster or quite a lot of height to push you forward. The height gives you a long hamstring, so never ever feel intimidated by the prop work. The prop work is there to teach you and to give you a really good experience of the pose. Okay, so coming up now and then crossing the legs the other way. So when you're in this position, you want to see that, again, you're crossing the legs, groins are active. You want to see that you're able to open that back spine. So the back spine needs to be supported through the length of the front body. So be sure that when you're coming into this action, you're able to understand. Coming forward. Just rest in the head when you're ready. Just rest in the head. So again, be at the right height that you can sense there's some opening going on. Something's happening inside that lower spinal region. There's quite a strong action, quite a demanding action. So just take your time to ground down into your legs, into the back of the thighs. You may need to come up and go back down again if it's just too unbearable. Sometimes it'd be a bit like a toothache. So quite a strong action. So we're coming forward in this way. Okay, and then release them. All right, so I'm going to show you a Gomukhasana modified version. So those of you who find this difficult, I will show you a different way of working, and hopefully it works for you whilst you're practicing at home. So bear with me. So the Gomukhasana, if you have a look, in the modified version, is when we take the legs together in this way, and we want to move those feet away from one another, but we want to level the pelvis. So quite often, I mean, I know that we've practiced this on many occasions, and it is a bit like a toothache in the outer hips, but you want to get to a stage where you're practicing this and it's not so bad. Now, those of you who are challenged by this, and particularly if it's difficult to bend the knees, so I know there's a few of you in this situation, and so you can actually be in this position. I know that the culprit, the bad knee, the knee, whoops, that doesn't move, you place around here, and then you can just get a leverage on it and hold if possible. You might need to have two belts to help you with this action. So you see, I'm not bending the knee too much here, but I've got to then weight down the leg. So the leg becomes really, the thigh becomes very active. It's got to go down towards the belly. So if you're one of those people who find it really difficult to get the action in the seated position, so you're all cooking in Gomukhasana now. If you find it really challenging in this seated position, then by all means come into the supine action and just see that you get that knotted effect in your legs, but in a supine action. Yeah. So those of you who are in the supine action, then you can just ground those legs closer and closer towards you. Try to let go of the control there. Those of you in the seated position, then you have an added extra adjustment. Whereas when you're on the floor in supine, you can really use your body weighted to the floor. So you're just coming forward in this way. So you just come forward. It just, just enriches the pose a little bit. I'm sure you're not feeling that at the moment. All right, come on then. Release the legs and we go for the other side. So we go for the other side. I want to see that we're getting this grip of the hips. So very strong action. And see, wherever you're tight, you've got to see that you breathe into those areas. So again, those of you doing supine action, using the belt, if you're using the belt, that's absolutely fine. Just let those legs become weighted and heavy. Yeah, so quite a lot of work going on here. You want to see that you are just letting those legs unfold. If you're in the supine action, same thing, you want to let those legs just gradually unfold. And quite often in the very beginning of this practice, you feel that there's so much superficial tightness taking over that it's very difficult to get anywhere with it. But persevere with this, have a couple of goes, practice it. Okay, and now releasing. Well done. All right, so we're going to sit in Virasana. Those of you who are not sitting in Virasana, I'd like you to sit on the chair because we're going through some arm actions. So we're going to have a couple of foam pads for the Sukhasana, Virasana, should I say, Virasana action. So I'm going to grip the foam pad like that. Yeah. Okay. So not dissimilar to how we worked last week in the standing poses. So when you're in this position, you're going to interlock your fingers. Same thing if you are on the chair. You want to see that there's a weighted element. Those arms are weighting back and opening like a book. You've got to fan out to the side, fan out to the side. And breathe. So you're really picking up the upper spinal region. And then from there, keep that length through the centre of the body and then see, are you able to keep your chest active, but these areas of the back of the shoulders released. So they've got to release down. And extend. So really what's happening is that this is a very natural rotation this way. This is a very natural lift this way. But the problem comes when these two areas, the ball and socket joint of the shoulder is wrapped up into these muscles, so you can't get that length. So you want to see that you are extending into your palms, letting those arms release a little bit, keeping that lift through the chest, and breathe. And then see, are you able to lift the chest and let this outer shoulder area become very weighted down. You can see that action. I'll do it again. Weighted down and then lengthening. Keeping that length. You see my arms are really active. Okay, and then release them. All right, so we're coming for the Gomukhasana now. So we did mention this action in the leg work. We're now in Virasana. So you can use the belt if you need to for your arms. Then we take the hand around, hold, extend the top arm up, reach, and then extend in this way. So you're extending the elbows away from one another, pushing up. So again, if you're on the chair, still work with the chair action, sitting nicely, keep that lift through the center of the body. Be sure that you're grounding down into the feet in that seated position. Soft inhalation, soft exhalation. All right, and then release the arm and change the arm position. So we're changing sides now, extending out to the side, reaching with the arm. Okay, and again, you've got to try to relax that outer shoulder. You've got to relax the outer shoulder. And then extending the top arm up. And then connecting. So you've got to see that both shoulders release in opposite directions. Okay, well done. All right, so if you're using the belt, if you're using your fingers, be sure that you're keeping that connection. And then release, and then release. All right, so again, if you're on the chair, I'd like you to stay on that chair. Sit and rest the head with your hands onto some support. So if you're not on the chair, and you can come into a Virasana action to the floor, fine. You will extend forward onto some support, extending. You've got to really get some length in those thighs to do this. Pressing into the tops of the feet strongly. And then grounding to the support. You can see it's a Virasana action. It's a bit of a job. Otherwise, take the two big toes together and then extending forward. In this position. So if that's difficult, then you may need to have some support underneath the buttock, and then this would obviously be a lot higher in this way. Sometimes it's quite nice to be a little bit higher because it really does activate this fold. Sometimes we squash down and we don't realise how much space we need in this hip joint to keep those actions. Okay. Just take a few more deeper breaths, inhalations and exhalations. Okay, well done. Really good.